How are you doing, guys? It's Luke here at SimBoxx, and I'm delighted to welcome back onto the channel our resident heavyweight boxing guru, Nick Campbell. Nick, how are we doing?
Look, good to be here, man. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Of course, so we said we'll try and tailor these chats, these interviews around the big heavyweight fights, and we've got the biggest heavyweight fight coming up this Saturday, Undisputed, all four world titles on the line for the first time on British soil. Oleksandr Usyk, Daniel Dubois, the rematch. Nick, are you excited for this fight?
Yeah, definitely. I think the whole boxing community is, and I think there's a little bit of needle there in the fight week build up. So I'm expecting fireworks on Saturday night.
So let's start on that there with this little bit of needle. We've seen Daniel Dubois be very vocal in the face-off and whatnot, shouting in the face of Usyk. Usyk as calm as a cucumber, as always. Do you think this is a manufactured needle that Daniel Dubois is trying to get himself fired up, or do you think there's genuine needle there, say from the first fight and the controversy around that, was it or wasn't it a low blow? Do you think it's genuine needle, or do you think it's manufactured to fire Daniel up?
Nah, I think Daniel's been told what to do.
Right.
He's probably been told how to conduct himself and how to try and get under Usyk's skin. So yeah, definitely manufactured. But listeners, who knows, maybe it's giving him an edge or maybe it's helping him get fired. I don't know, but I don't think it will have any real bearing on the fight outcome, and I don't think it will have any real effect on Usyk. This guy's cool as a cucumber, as you said, and take a lot more than a little bit of disrespect and shouting in his face at the face-offs and weigh-ins and whatever to upset him. So yeah, adds to the spectacle. Then it gets people talking and I'll get more people watching it on Saturday night. So yeah, listen, it's good for the spectacle of the fight.
In terms of the mind games aspects, we've seen Usyk wasn't phased by Tyson Fury, who's the master of mind games. He destroyed Deontay Wilder a couple of times at the press conferences before he even got in the ring, and you could really tell that made an impact on the fight. Whereas when Tyson Fury come up against Usyk, he couldn't penetrate him with the mind games, with the talking, the trash talking, and whatnot. What is it about Usyk, in your words, Nick? Do you think that makes him so mentally strong? Is it the things that he's had to face outside of boxing? Is it a mixture of everything? What do you think?
I think it's a mixture of everything. I think it's just the type of character he is. He really believes in what he's doing and he believes in himself. That's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And then I think as well, when you go away from that, you look at all the stuff that's going on in Ukraine at the moment, his personal struggles outside the ring. I think yeah, he's had a lot of kind of defining moments in his life that have probably brought him to this level of mental toughness. So, I think it's a combination of everything. The man, the individual, and then the circumstance which have made him the way he is.
Yeah, of course. Let's go back to that first fight a couple of years ago now, coming up to 2 years ago, in Poland, as close to a homecoming as Alexander Usyk's been afforded at this stage of his career with all the troubles in Ukraine. Um, First off, Nick, was it a low blow? Was it legal that fifth round, that body shot from Daniel Dubois? What's your thoughts on that? Because that's what the intangible is to make this second fight appealing, isn't it? That's what they're clinging on to.
Yeah, listen, at the time I can remember watching it and I thought it was borderline either way. And it kind of just boiled down to whatever the referee, his instruction had been in the dressing room before the fight. So whether he said on the belt line was low blow or above you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And who knows? And then obviously, like you say, this has been the one point where it's been like, oh, but we won the first fight, so it's been held on to and it's driven the narrative. I don't know if it's going to be I don't actually think it'll be that helpful for Dubois because I think if anything, it's given Usyk an edge to prove himself and to prove that it didn't really matter whether it was a low blow or it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? He's the better man in his opinion. So I don't know. I don't know if bringing it up and going on about it is going to be a positive or a negative thing. There's no doubt about it. You know, Usyk can be hurt to the body. We've seen it against Joshua at points where he was hurt to the body. We've seen it against Tyson. We obviously seen it against Daniel, whether it was or wasn't a low blow. So it's probably the one area of weakness that he's really got if you can get to him and hurt him to the body. But I'm sure that he's prepared for that, and he knows. Like, listen, he's not stupid. You know what I mean? He knows that that's going to be a something Dubois is going to try and exploit. He feels like he's got an edge on him there, and I suppose their camp, him and Don Charles, will be hoping that when he lands a significant body shot, it brings back those flashbacks of that feeling, and is he going to be able to overcome it? So I listen. I think adds to the spectacle of the fight. It's a question that needs answered, but I feel as if it could maybe be a negative for Daniel, and it's a point that Usyk's going to want to prove.
That's quite interesting that because I've not really heard it, someone say it could work against Daniel, which is quite interesting. Just to stretch on a point you made there, do you buy into the fact that Usyk doesn't? No boxers, you well know, will like body shots. No one's going to stand there and say like let your shots go and hit me in to the body. Or is it just a case of Usyk's that brilliant that we're just trying to clutch at straws and there's got to be something he doesn't like? Maybe he's a terrible dancer, who knows? But that there's got to be a weakness to the man. You know what I mean? That when they're that brilliant, you're trying to clutch at something.
Nah, listen. I think always remember, as an amateur, and obviously we were getting a wee habit of headhunting.
Mm,
And I can remember I was sparring over in Russia, and I was hitting this boy clean and had no effect. And I came out the ring and I was a bit frustrated for sparring and stuff. And coach said to me, "You never threw one body shot there. You need to target the body more. You need to go at the body more." Next time we had a spar, I went a bit more at the body and had a bit more success.
mm,
And kind of taught me that you can be as tough as you like, you can have the best chin in the world, but if somebody hits you with a good body shot, it hurts. It doesn't matter who you are. And a lot of the times you'll be watching guys who can absorb so much punishment to the head, and one body shot seems to be the difference. So yeah, I think listen, it is maybe a point where everybody's trying to find one weakness in Usyk. And listen, I'm sure there's more than one weakness. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, as well, Daniel Dubois is a massive puncher. If he can get it on him early, put him under pressure, not let Usyk upset his rhythm, and really put it on him, then there's like every chance that he could get rid of him early on in the fight, first 5 or 6 rounds. But saying it and doing it are two separate things. I definitely think that sus- uh, he's got a weakness there to the body, as probably every fighter does. But he's giving away so much size and weight and strength to the boys he's fighting at heavyweight. It's probably amplified a bit, and I think that's maybe an area that they're going to look to target. Obviously, given the first fight as well. But is it a weakness? Probably, yeah. But everybody has that weakness to the body if you get hit in the right place.
yeah, of course, of course. The second part or the second point to take away from that first fight, and it's a word I really don't like using because I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to say it. But Daniel Dubois in the ninth round, he goes down from a jab. He'd been outboxed comprehensively for the 8 or 9 rounds. It's leveled at him since the Joe Joyce fight. Now with the first Usyk fight, did he quit, Nick? Are we able to say that you're more qualified than me to be able to have an opinion on it? But did Daniel Dubois quit?
I think no, I don't really like using the word quit. I feel
Like,
as if a lot of people use this word that I've never fought before and
yeah,
don't understand what it's like to be punched in the head and the amount of stress and how hard boxing is. Boxing is the toughest sport in the world. Do you know what I mean? So I don't like using the word quit. I feel as if it was more he couldn't work him out. He just couldn't work out how to beat them, and he kind of mentally shut down. And he was under a lot of pressure. He was tired. He was exhausted. And I don't feel as if he quit. I feel as if he just kind of couldn't continue. I don't know. It's a hard one to explain. I feel as if he couldn't crack the code, and the computer just shut down. To be honest with you, and I think yeah, like at that Joe Joyce fight, he had a fractured orbital bone. A lot of people were saying he quit, but that must have been excruciatingly painful. And like I say again, Joe Joyce came in with great tactics in that fight, and he just couldn't quite work it out. I think that's where Daniel can. I don't think he's a quitter. We've seen that against Hergovich. He was under a lot of pressure, eating a lot of shots. We've seen it against Baby Miller. He was under a lot of pressure, eating a lot of shots at times. He's not a quitter. I think it's just a case of the computer maybe switches down or
yeah,
powers down when he can't quite work out how to beat somebody.
yeah, absolutely. Now, since that first fight, Usyk beating Tyson Fury twice back to back. Daniel Dubois, as you mentioned there, beating Baby Miller, Hergovich, destroying Anthony Joshua in impressive fashion. Along with Joe Parker, the run of form in the heavyweight division between these two is as good as it gets in any weight class. Talk to me about the improvements you've seen in Daniel Dubois in that run of form, as you say there, the obstacles he's overcome, the toughness he's had to show. How impressive have you been with Daniel Dubois since that defeat?
Yeah, listen, yeah, listen, I think he has really, reinvented himself. I think linking up with Don Charles was massive for him. I think Shane McGuigan's a fantastic coach, but I think, the styles of the coaching, the mentality, the personalities have just gelled really well when Don and Daniel have came together, and it just suits him. He's a kind of like extra father figure in there. He really looks up to Don, and it just works for them. So I think Don's been a massive part of his success. I don't think if he had stayed with Shane, he would perhaps have been on the run that he's on, and that's not because I don't think Shane McGuigan's a world-class coach. I just think they work really well together.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, listen, I think he's definitely, like we already touched on, proved any doubters wrong. He's not a quitter, that's for sure. And yeah, listen, I think it's more he's got all the physical attributes, Daniel. It's just about getting the top 2 inches right for him and having the right mentality. And I think that's what this change up in his camp has allowed him to do. He's got real mental belief in what he's doing. He's a mentally strong guy, and yeah, he had everything already. It was just about sorting out the top 2 inches, I believe, and it's paid dividends in his last 3 fights, definitely.
So on the flip side, with Alexander Usyk, we've seen he shared 24 highly competitive rounds with Tyson Fury, come away with the two victories. Have you seen anything in those fights to suggest that Alexander Usyk could be anywhere near even a slight decline, or are we talking still that Alexander Usyk's at his absolute peak still?
You can only go off his last performance, and in my opinion, it was a world class performance against another world class fighter. And his last, like we say, his last however many fights, I can't count up because it's near enough every fight that he's in. He's been world class. So it's going to seem like it's whenever that happens. And listen, I think I really like Alexander Usyk. I think he's a generational great. First undisputed cruiser and heavyweight champion of the world. Unbelievable. Do you know what I mean? Like I've got nothing but respect and admiration for the guy. So I don't want it to be he goes in there and we see it, the age is caught up with him, and I want him to finish on a high. So the only time we'll really see whether age is caught up with him or not is when he's in there fighting, and that we'll find that out on Saturday night. But there's nothing at this moment in time to indicate that age has caught up with him.
Absolutely. Before I push you for a prediction, just looking at what might be next for a potential victor, in terms of Alexander Usyk, if he was to become two-time undisputed heavyweight world champion, you'd like to think there's nothing else for him to achieve in the game, that he's beaten everybody that he needed to beat. Good friend of yours, Joe Parker, is that a fight you'd like to see? Would you be interested in Alexander Usyk against Joe Parker? Take away your allegiances to Joe Parker, but just as a pure sporting contest, is that a fight you'd think Usyk should stick around for, or do you think he's completed the game twice over?
Listen, it's up to Alexander what he does, but I think if you look at his resume, Joe Parker's probably the only name missing from it. So if he wanted to listen, like I say, he's already probably the best of his generation anyway, but if he wanted to tick one more name off the list, then Joe's probably the only one left. Um, that's again, like I say, that's up to him because, like you say, he's got absolutely nothing to prove. And whether he had Joe's name or didn't have Joe's name doesn't really matter. I think that's probably one of the hardest fights out there for him. And like we say, I don't want to go back to my allegiance, but you would have to say Usyk was the favourite for that. But again, the same as Daniel Dubois, Joe's got every chance of beating him if that fight was to be next for him. So it's a fight that Joe would, jump at. Like I'm no doubt about it. Do you know what I mean? He wants to test himself against the best, and Alexander Usyk's definitely the best. So it's a fight that makes sense from a legacy point of view for Usyk. It's definitely a fight that makes sense for Joe. It all depends what Alexander Usyk wants to do after this fight if he comes out victorious.
Sure. Now, on the flip side, Daniel Dubois, let's take the mandatory obligations that these guys are going to have, because holding all four belts, we know there's going to be a plethora of mandatory challenges to come. So we're talking fantasy booking in the way. If Daniel Dubois was to win, what do you think of the idea of a Tyson Fury or Joshua trying to skip the rankings and because of the name and because of the financial power that they bring to the table, that they can jump in and maybe get a voluntary against Daniel Dubois. This is where Eddie Hearn seems to be positioned Anthony Joshua, which I'm not really in agreement with. You've got your man Joe Parker, you've got Ajit Cabell, other form heavyweights that are doing everything asked of them. What would you like to see Daniel Dubois do if he was victorious?
I don't think the Joshua fight is. There's no point. Um, he get completely wiped out by Daniel Dubois in 5 or 6 rounds, and I can't see it changing. I think, aye, I don't. I can't see AJ coming back and improving and changing the outcome of that fight. For a Tyson, I actually think styles make fights. I think Daniel Dubois would be quite an easy fight for Tyson Fury. I don't think Daniel's style suits to fight a guy like Tyson, who's very adaptable, a much bigger man. I think Tyson would take him out quite easy, to be honest with you. Completely outbox him, get him to give up probably. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Tyson Fury and AJ fight is the one fight that still is there for both those guys. That's a massive fight. That's probably financially one of the biggest fights in boxing.
It doesn't need a world title,
Um,
does it? Doesn't need a world
nah,
title.
doesn't doesn't need a world title. And then the only other, thing in play is it depends what Turkey wants because he's the man making the calls at the end of the day. And obviously Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, Dana White now. Spencer Brown, all these guys will be in Turkey's ear, but he's going to be the one who's got the final say because it's his money at the end of the day. So that's what it boils down to, what Turkey wants. Obviously, the belts are going to be split up. I'd say that Kabayel and Joe are definitely going to get a chance at a world title within the next year anyway. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But I'd quite like Tyson and Joshua to fight, and then I'd probably quite like Usyk to retire after this because I think if he beats Daniel on Saturday night, that's his legacy there. Um, and then if he wins, he's probably got to go on to fight Joe. I get after Joe or Joe or I get whoever it is. And then Daniel can still come again as well. Do you know what I mean? So listen, it's not final for Daniel Dubois if he loses on Saturday night. He can still come again. There's still plenty of fights out there for him, and he's still arguably one of the best heavyweights in the world. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different, outcomes or potential outcomes. So it'd be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Definitely, it's an exciting division, like you say, with many moving parts. Nick, just to close out, I can't leave you sitting on the fence with them splinters. Can I push you for a prediction? How does it play out on Saturday night?
I'm listening, be foolish to back against Usyk. I've probably got him 60-40 favourite. I think if he goes out there, upsets Daniel Dubois' rhythm, with his lead hand feints, doesn't let him get set, doesn't let him get any shots off. I think it could be another successful night for him. Either wide points or late stoppage. I'll just say if Daniel Dubois manages to come out the traps early, get set in his rhythm, put it on Alexander Usyk, put him under pressure, land some big shots, it could be a different outcome early on. But if I'm a betting man, my money's on Alexander Usyk.
Interesting, interesting. Nick, always fascinating to get your thoughts, your opinions on the big heavyweight scene. As always, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us today with SimBoxx.
Mate, thank you for having me. Been a pleasure as always. Hope everybody enjoys the fights, and I'll speak to you all soon.